Good morning. We are going to call the October 20th, 2020 Scott County Board of Commissioners to order. And since it is supposed to snow, we've got the hoisted the Christmas ornament and just because it feels so festive. So please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Maybe if I put this thing down, maybe it won't snow. Let's go with that.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure of
October
that.
20th of snow, we can't be having that. Item number 2, amendments to the agenda. We have received one new agenda item, so I believe we are going to be putting that on 7.2 at the end. So we do have an agenda with an amendment. We are, I always forget this, we are full strength. We've got Commissioner Ulrich online, and Commissioner Beard, you can see him present, not necessarily on Zoom, but we are all here. So we're doing roll call votes.
Mr. Chair, I will approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion with 7.2 added? Otherwise, Tracy, take it away, please.
Sure. Commissioner Weckman-Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
Here we go. Thank you very much. Item number 3, approve minutes of the October 6th, 2020 County Board meeting that we've received in our packets. Are there any changes, additions, deletions on those?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Otherwise, Tracy, take it away, please.
Commissioner Weckman-Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
There you go. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, recognition of interested citizens, a great opportunity where anyone can come and speak to the board for up to 5 minutes on items not on the agenda. I believe we've got somebody in person and perhaps a Zoom, so come on up. In person, yep, come on up, state your name, and we'll have a little timer running, so I may give you a 1 minute remaining,
Okay.
just to
sounds
wind you
good.
down a little bit,
Okay.
if need be.
So Steve Delmeyer, for 4215 Hunters Lane, so part of the Hunters Crest subdivision. Thanks for taking thanks for taking comment today, commissioners and chair. So I think you may have heard from me, and so thanks for taking my phone calls in the past. I think there's been a few of us that are pretty vocal out in the neighborhood about a Doug Schiefer heliport request in Cedar Lake Township. So I'd like to thank you for that right off the beginning. And I'd also like to thank the staff for the staff and the planning commission for making some of the changes that we already requested. So we do want to recognize them for hearing us, I guess, on that. But there are some things that we've additionally requested that I don't think we've been that have changed in the CUP, and I think that's going to be coming before you. That passed the planning board, and so I think you're aware that that's probably going to be coming for you in one of the upcoming meetings. In regards to that, one of the biggest things I think we'd like to see change is the flight routes. So according to Mr. Schiefert, there's only 2 flight routes needed in order to get that in order to have the heliport at his residence. And so we'd really ask that northern flight route be removed. That is the route that goes over very closely to our home, and it affects the bulk of the neighbors that are probably in opposition. It comes over our areas. We'd like to see that removed. He could still have the heliport. He could still fly out. He would just have to fly primarily to the south. I think would be the one that will be the least impact. It's really just farm fields headed to the south. I think you might hear about an eagle's nest down there, but in general, that's the one the least impact. I think there's also one to the west that's proposed right now. We'd like to see that one probably as the last option. One thing we'd like to talk about is the east route. So going to the east would go over to Doug's neighborhood. I think that there are some neighbors in Doug's community that are in favor of it. We'd like to see that head towards that direction, and the neighbors that are for it, we'd like to see that fly over their homes. So again, north removed, south is the primary is really what we'd like to see, and hopefully you guys, when that comes before you, will make that change. As far as the days of operation go, right now it's Monday through Friday, basically, and there is some time limits now. It's basically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'd ask that Sundays are removed from that flight plan. Doug, when he sent a letter to us and the residents around him, basically stated that this was for work, and so we believe that leaving a Saturday in, might work on a Saturday, right? So we'd ask that Sunday be removed so that he's flying 6 days a week, the 7 to 7. And then the Sunday being left alone. You know, most people work, and even I work on Saturday sometimes, so being home on Sunday would be nice to have that day of reprieve where we don't have any flights coming over our home. Number of operations, so that did get called down to 50. I think it was at 84 at one point. I think in a letter from Doug, he was only ever asking for 50. So in at least the letter to us, he said that. So I think that'd be great. But then one operation per day. I think it's allowed right now that he may fly up to 4 times per day or several times per day on 4 calendar days. I forget exactly what it is. We would like to see that so that it's only 1 flight per calendar day is I guess what we're looking for there. The helipad placement, right now I think it's going to be on the top of the hill, which will probably give us sight lines and also maybe better view to the noise from the north where we live at. We'd like to see that push the south side of this proposed property. I think he's going to build a shed out there too to store the helicopter, and I don't know that I have any placement or any concern on where the shed's going to go. We just like to see the heliport moved as far south of the property, over the hill, and probably reduce some of the noise that we might experience out in that area. So whatever zoning setbacks allow for where the shed placement would go, obviously, we'd look for that. And then a test flight. We welcome all of you to come out here, and I think you've heard that from a lot of us. Come out to our neighborhood. Come stand in our cul-de-sac. Come stand on my back porch, social distancing, of course. Come out and hear it. I think we've heard a lot about noise. Noise is noise. Like, we live on County Road 2, and there's jake braking, and there's trucks and whatnot, but a helicopter is kind of an unnerving sound. It's not a natural sound, and when you hear it, you're like, what's going on around, right? And so come out and hear that helicopter. If you think that it's maybe not concerning, come out and, step in our shoes for a minute and see what we're going to experience when this is approved out there. So we welcome you out to the neighborhood. We'll be accommodating, and the Hunter's Lane subdivision, we again welcome you out there and see what that flight route is going to be to the north. Just kind of in closing, a couple things. I think you might hear that there is some support for the
Just trying to bring some more viewers in with a little
Yeah,
sound effects here and there.
I'm a lot of Zoom meetings in a day now, so I can relate.
It's always something. It's always something, right?
Exactly. But you might hear that there are some neighbors that are supportive of it, and I think that you might find that there's some relationships with Doug there, right? But I think by and large, you're going to see that most people this negatively impacts, and most people are not for this heliport. I think in our Hunter's Lane subdivision, 9 out of 10 of us are against it, and all the neighbors that really are around us have signed the petition saying that they're against it. Some are more vocal than others, probably vocal right here, right? But I think that there are a lot of people that are just, they're not for it, so I'd like to notate that. Another comment, all points that we're making are really reasonable. So this is a conditional use permit. There are conditions going to be placed on it, right? And so the conditions that we're asking really they're reasonable conditions, I think, and that they're really within the purview or the bookends of what the CUP would allow. So I think that's something to notate. If this were your home, I think that you guys, everybody here would be as passionate as maybe we are to see how that's going to negatively impact the neighborhood. So just, think about us, and I know Scott County is big on property rights, right? But, I think that we probably have some rights, or hopefully we have some rights, and there's a lot of rights being impacted for one person. And I think my last comment I wanted to say is I looked up the county's mission statement, so I think it states to advance safe, healthy, and livable communities. I think if that's really your mission statement and you look at what this heliport's going to do, I think that there's really a clash there if you really look at the two. I don't think that a heliport for one person to fly for work or for personal gain to go up to maybe to his lake home probably clashes with what the mission statement says in our county, I think. So, if this were to be approved and the conditions as is, I think that the commission statement really needs to be looked at because I think that they really contradict each other. So, with that, that's really all I had to get through. I think I'm under 5 minutes here. I think this is just more of what you've heard from us. I don't think there's probably anything new here, but just want to continue to be vocal. And so with that, I just open it up for any questions. If there's anything you want to ask, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Well, I would just say I appreciate you coming, and this is absolutely, you're right. So it's no bother, of course. And I think I talked to you on the phone, I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I missed your neighborhood. I was thinking you were at one street over. So my apologies on that. But I think we've definitely this is on our minds, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of passion here for some of the neighbors out there, and some that would come and speak. I know there's neighbors to me that they have a health condition, so they're not really able to come out and ever speak in a situation. Otherwise, they would be. But I think you've got petitions from all of our neighbors basically saying that we oppose it, and many of them have written letters as well. So.
And Mr. Chair, if I can add, we really would like that just a landing and a takeoff.
Yeah.
And I think all of us would like to hear that and So hopefully that can get done, but I looked at the 10-day weather deal, and boy, it doesn't look good.
Yeah,
It's like-
yeah, and I know what's coming up here,
That
so.
fall week we had was really nice.
So I think it has to be approved by November, like early November on the 60-day, or there was a 60-day
I thought
extension or
was,
something
the
like that?
17th was the schedule, that's what I thought was coming to the
Yeah.
board here, so. If we can get then, that's almost a month yet, but yeah.
And even if there's not a, even if you're unable to come out to actually view this, I mean, again, our conditions are really reasonable. They are definitely within the bookends of the CUP. I think that there really couldn't be pushback on that, and so again, the northern flight route, moving it to the south side of the property, 6 days a week, I mean, I think that there's some pretty basic stuff we're asking for here, just to try and limit the impact to the group in this Hunters Lane neighborhood that is really opposing that. So.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much.
With that, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. And I believe we also have a Zoom interested citizen. I think Tracy's gonna bring that up for us. Is that Pastor Gary? I see a Pastor Gary.
There we go. Yes.
There he is.
Yes,
How are you, sir?
My name is Gary Kinkle. I'm a resident of Shakopee in Scott County, and I am the senior pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church, which is also here in Shakopee in Scott County. And first, I want to thank you for this opportunity, but I also want to thank you for your ongoing interest in not just the county, but what's happening with housing in the county. We have a serious problem, as you know, and a problem that's going to only be getting worse. St. John's is currently doing all that we can to reach out and help people who are in some pretty rough circumstances in the community of Shakopee, but also in the wider county. Our congregation, which is far from the largest congregation in Shakopee, we house loaves and fishes, and we provide a free meal 4 days a week. We'll be moving to 5 days a week here pretty soon. We also house an organization called Shakopee Community Assistance. And although it's called Community Assistance, we really get people from all over the county. Shakopee Community Assistance provides some free clothing, diapers, hygiene items like towels and soap and that sort of thing. And we also have a third organization now called the Toy Corner, which provides free toys for children. Many of the people who need these ministries and who utilize them don't have a stable roof over their heads. And as you probably know, statistically, children who grow up homeless are more than twice as likely to be homeless as adults as children who grow up with a stable roof over their heads. But we are doing really everything that we can. We are stretched to the limit in housing these three ministries, and we don't have the resources to provide actual housing. We're fully aware that many of the people who stop in, right now because of the pandemic, we're not serving a meal inside our building. People pull up at the curb and we bring their meals out to them in the car. But we know that a significant portion of the people who stop by for a free meal are living in their cars, which is particularly difficult as we start moving into colder weather. Again, we're really stretched to our limit, and the churches together are really about at the limit of what we can do. And we have people here in our community and more widely in the county who don't have a place to live. The Beacon Project proposes to build a place that will begin to pull these families out of that circumstance and make it much less likely that those children will be homeless as they grow up. It has a tremendous long-term benefit for the community and the county in that it will provide a significant number of people who, rather than being in need of services, will be paying taxes and contributing to the community. It will also contribute to a dropping rate of people being involved in alcohol and drugs. And in light of this, as a faith leader in Scott County and in Shakopee, I urge you, I strongly encourage you to support this $900,000 capital commitment to build Prairie Point in Shakopee. And if that happens, we faith leaders will be able to use that as a leverage point, and we believe we can raise $15 million from outside sources. But we do need that basic leg up the county. And so thank you again. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for the work that you're already doing. And thank you for your openness.
Well, Pastor Gary, thank you for being the church and being the hands and feet and storing up for yourself treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy. So thank you for being a part of this community in every which way.
You're very welcome. Have a good meeting.
Thank you very much. Tracy, is there any other online?
Not that I know of.
I don't see anyone
I would
else
maybe just ask.
coming in. All right. So we will move on to item number 5, where we're going to receive information on the Scott County Delivers topic, Live, Learn, and Earn. And here we go. We've got a panel, socially distanced. There's very few people in the room. We've got masks coming in and out. Life is good. Life is good. Sometimes it's a choice, but life is good.
Life is good. All
Chris,
right.
you're going to kick us off.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We are here today to talk about Live, Learn, Earn as part of the Scott County Delivers series. We are very privileged today, I think, to have a nice collection of folks from the county and also from our community partners, and we're going to do some introductions around that in just a minute. This is the first time that Live, Learn, and Earn has presented at Scott County Delivers, so it'll be a nice chance to ask questions of this group. I think kind of one of the introductory points I would just like to make is as we talk about this morning, Live, Learn, Earn is not a program and it's not an initiative. It's really a way that we hope to do business, and I think you're going to hear that over and over this morning, that it's really about how we do business with each other to accomplish the things that we see as common goals. You're also going to hear a little bit about us being at kind of a new point in a developmental cycle with LLE. And I think that Jay Grusing, who is one of our remote presenters today, is going to start with that. One just logistical note, Darren Kermis is a remote presenter and he is only available until 9:30 this morning, so we're going to accommodate his schedule in that way. So with that, could I ask the folks in the room to do just a brief introduction of who you are and who you work with, and then we'll ask for the remote presenters to do the same.
Sure. Barb Dahl, Social Services Director with Scott County, and have been, I guess, mostly involved with our workforce readiness group within Live, Learn, Earn.
Julie Sigert with the Scott County CDA and have been involved in the housing work group.
Kurt Briggs, Mayor of Prayer Lake. I've been involved on the steering committee of Live, Learn, Earn, also on the education group, and most recently on housing.
Thank you. Jake.
Good morning, Jake Grusing, Scott County Library Director and Project Coordinator for Live, Learn, Earn.
Jody Brennan. Are you with us?
Thank you. I'm Brennan from the Shakopee City Council. I'm a member of Live, Learn, and Earn, and I'm on the Housing Committee, the Transit Committee, and then I'm also involved in the Innovation Center.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. Darren?
Good morning, Darren Kermis, Superintendent of Southwest Metro Intermediate School District.
Thank you. It sounds like you have a busy schedule this morning, so we appreciate you working us in and making the most of your time. Danny Lenz is going to join me at the podium kind of off and on this morning. Did you want to start, or would you like me to start? All right. Jake, you were going to make some introductory comments, so I'd like to take that back to you for just a minute.
Sure. Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. And a special thanks to Councilmember Brennan, Mayor Briggs, Superintendent Kermes, and Julie Siegert for being in the room today participating. Because Live, Learn, Earn, as Chris said, is more a way of doing business than it is a program, the success of Live, Learn, Earn depends entirely on the partners it comprises, even in conversations like this. Live, Learn, Earn is a collective impact initiative with a mission of ensuring the sustained economic vitality for all Scott County residents. Another way of saying that, I think, is that Live, Learn, Earn brings people together to worry less about their own turf and their own silos and more about how we can serve our taxpayers effectively and efficiently. To a large degree, that's why we're here in a county board setting talking about this. The county is one among many partners in Live, Learn, Earn, and we provide a variety of services as a county connected to Live, Learn, Earn's focus areas of housing, transportation, education, and workforce development. So today we're going to talk about those 4 topics, where we've been, where we think we're going. We've got 4 minutes before Superintendent Kermes has to leave. I hope we can turn it over to him for a couple questions and hear his perspective.
Thank you, Jake. Yes, Darren, can we start with just a couple questions for you? I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective, about the partnership element of, I'm not sure where I'm looking here, about the partnership element of Live, Learn, Earn, and also what you see as some of the financial or the fiscal implications for LLE.
Well, thank you. And again, I apologize that I need to be running this morning. I have a meeting with the Department of Education coming up related to COVID, and just got off the National Weather Service call on whether we're going to need to release school early today. So with that,
You cut him off.
Fun day in the neighborhood.
Way to cut him off. Can't be talking like that.
The beauty of Live, Learn, Earn, and what I'm seeing from an educational perspective is, if maybe I can use the example of our post-secondary group. How many years have Southwest Metro serves both Scott and Carver counties primarily, and how many years have both of these counties been talking about the need for post-secondary opportunities? We don't have a college, a university, a community college, a tech college in our areas. And I am, for the first time in literally a decade, excited about the prospect that we're going to be able to, through the conversation started through Live, Learn, Earn, bring in some opportunities. We're hoping to be a part of that. We're hoping to close on the purchase of a Dean Lakes facility and working to make that be part of the solution. The city of Shakopee has a wonderful initiative, and I know they are waiting to hear whether that's going to be funded. Another thing that came through Live, Learn, Earn, and just the collaboration and the connections. And with all due respect to our friends and colleagues in Carver County, I will tell you that serving both counties, there is no comparison in terms of the relationship that exists between these two counties separated by a river. It is, from the education side, it is wonderful to feel that there's actual partnership with cities, with county government, and with others, as opposed to being in silos and pods. So I'm not certain if I answered all of your questions, but I see that as the biggest benefit to us in education through Scale and Live, Learn, Earn, and other opportunities to collaborate and connect, and hopefully bring in some more post-secondary opportunities here over the next year or two.
Darren, this is Barb. I think one of the things that is so unique about your opportunity with the Dean Lakes, and maybe this is what Chris was getting to from the fiscal perspective, is just how you've been able to work with the school districts and how you've been able to, I guess, look at a model that really doesn't have an impact to their budgets or to your budgets. And I don't know if you would want to explain that a little bit.
Sure. We are a joint powers entity. We are formed, the legislature authorized the creation of Southwest Metro. In technical terms, it's a joint powers entity with 11 of the member school districts, 5 from Scott County, 4 from Carver, and then Buffalo, Hanover, Montrose, and Tri-City United are our formal voting members. And What we did in the purchase of the Dean Lakes building, or what we are hoping to close on here in mid-December, is all of our boards had unanimously voted to approve the purchase. Was just on a call with Moody's yesterday, getting our bond rating. We anticipate getting that out and moving forward very quickly. What we're going to do with this is we have a couple of other satellite sites in Shakopee. We're going to move all of our programs. These will be our adult basic education programs, special education transition, some of our career and technical education programs, and one of my favorite programs, and I'm glad Barb brought this up, but we have a partnership with Scott County to provide the Reflections Day Treatment Program. The county provides the therapists, and we provide the educational staff. It's a wonderful partnership that serves a lot of young people across not only Scott County, but also from the surrounding areas. That will also be moving into that building by getting out of our other leases and then eventually selling our interest in the Valley Green building. We are going to be able to do this, to purchase a 100,000 square foot building, do the necessary renovations, which are modest at best, given that this building was already set up for training and education. We will be doing this at a zero cost impact to local taxpayers. Say that again, zero change. We were able to do this, our lease levy will go up slightly, but our long-term facilities maintenance will go down dollar for dollar by a corresponding amount, because we are getting out of older buildings and moving into a much newer, nicer facility. And that's before we even talk about the savings to the local school districts of only having to send buses to one location instead of multiple sites, and our ability to work and partner with the programs within that building. So again, it's from a fiscally responsible point of view, I will welcome all of you to come visit that building, hopefully after the first of the year when we finish this. But to be able to upgrade our facilities at zero tax impact, I think is just a wonderful opportunity for students, learners of all ages across this county.
That's really very impressive. Thank you for sharing that. That's really fine work. Before you go, Darren, we did include in our data packet a couple of slides regarding educational outcomes for students in Scott County. On page 26, there's the percent of third grade readers. And page 20, oops. Thank you. There we go. There's on page 27, there are high school graduation rates. And I wonder if somebody on the Live, Learn, Earn team can talk a little bit about your approach to looking at information related to education and how you are using this data to inform your own work. And Darren, I guess I'll give you the first chance because I realize we're out of time, over your timeline.
So your question is, how are we using this data?
Yeah, is your group looking at this kind of data, and are you using it in a way to inform direction or approaches to impacting educational outcomes for students in Scott County?
Yeah, I can jump in just quickly from the post-secondary piece. The graduation, we did look at a lot of data. One of the items that we did look at was graduation rates. One of the areas that we think could even increase those rates beyond the high levels that they're already at is more opportunities for high school seniors. You have the students who are seniors that are going to graduate no matter what we do. I mean, they're wonderful kids from great families who are intelligent and learn well. The kids that I worry about are the at-risk kids. It's the kids who struggle in school, who may have some other barriers that present challenges for them. And that's, I think, where we try to come in. And if you notice, our graduation rate is pretty flat. I think trying to provide things to get to that next 10%, to create opportunities, for example, in the areas of career and technical education. Not every student in Scott County is destined for a four-year college, but how about providing some career and technical, some hands-on opportunities for kids? Could that incentivize some students that otherwise may elect to drop out to stay in school, to complete and graduate, and possibly even pursue an AA or other advanced certification in an area that is more of a hands-on versus a more four-year college kind of degree. So yes, in short, we do look at the data. At least I can speak to my interpretation of it from the committee work that I've done. And I think that the committee, through some of its actions, not the least of which is the post-secondary initiative, could have an impact that could bring those high graduation rates even higher.
Great, thank you.
And I do apologize, I need to jump off here, but thank you for the time. I appreciate not only your time today, but all the support that this county gives, especially to education. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thanks,
Darren. Thanks, Darren.
And I'm Danny Lenz, I'm the Deputy County Administrator, and I'm going to walk through a couple of slides related to some of our educational and reading achievements, and get some maybe dialogue on kind of how this trend might flow. So if we go back to, let's see, where's the screenings? Yep. Screening age 3, okay. So if we look at this, in 2012, we were at 50% countywide in percent of kindergartners screened at age 3. Then we had a decline and then a back, kind of an upward trajectory up back to that 50%. So flat over that time period. But one of the takeaways I had from this was that our intervention came into the middle of a decline in this rate where we started having this screen at 3. As we follow that kind of trend, and the timing of this is a little bit off, obviously, because we started tracking screening at age 3 back there. We've also seen a decline in the percent of third grade students achieving reading standards. But then we're seeing a high school graduation rate. So if we're looking back at measuring the success of our Screen at 3 program and our focus on third grade reading levels, as we've seen that uptick in our screening at 3, should we start seeing a pattern going up in our third grade student achieving reading standards? And then for high school graduation rates, would we expect a decrease there, dip, based on that third grade reading level, and then a trajectory up over the course of time as these students age through the system? That was a lot.
I'll go ahead and jump in quickly. If you would go to the screening, the age 3 screening. So one of the key initiatives, and I call the commissioners to look at the variation between the cities. One of the things that the education task force looked at was this screening at age 3. The importance of a referral before a student arrives at kindergarten. I don't recall what the quote-unquote kindergarten surprise number was, but it's on the order of 10 to 15%. What's a kindergarten surprise? That's a child that shows up on the first day of kindergarten in September and was unknown to the principal that student was in his or her catchment area. Well, that means by definition that kindergartners showing up there absent a screening, because at screening not only can we identify a social, a visual, a listening challenge, get resources prior to that child arriving at school so that they're prepared academically. And when you looked at the differences, one of the things we also looked at was the concept of a positive deviancy. Positive deviancy are cities or counties or situations where they're performing far beyond the norm. And there you see Belle Plaine. It's doing a great job at ensuring that those students in their area, so what is it that lends them to success, or what are the challenges in other cities? And again, as you look at, say, Shakopee, what are the challenges? Many of those items are cultural language and how do we reach? And that became really the impetus behind a tool that the Live, Learn, Earn pre-K or education team looked at. What can we do to drive up the age 3 screening prior to age 5, enhance academic preparedness, such that they can indeed perform with their fellow students. Because one thing we do know, back to your question on graduation rates, if they are not reading at grade 3 at level, we know that the odds of them academically going on to success, the headwinds are just far too strong. And for a host of reasons, it actually can tail off. So this is something that is very concerning to us. We believe that we can get at that number with our screening before age 5.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was trying to pull out there is that some of this data trails as well, where this one may look like a negative one, but these students are actually being evaluated and they didn't have that intervention we had. Those are the ones that were in that declining period more likely.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, the last board meeting, there was a gift of this Kindle program, and I just wanted to give a chance for people to talk about how that fits into the Live, Learn, Earn work. And Jake, I can't remember how much of a chance you had to speak at that meeting, but I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the vision of that Kindle project.
Yeah, mercifully for everybody there, I didn't get a chance to speak at all. So I'll take the opportunity now. A generous gift from 2 of our county residents to purchase these Amazon Kids Kindle devices. And they are really intended to be used as an incentive with some of our school district partners to get families to bring their children in for their early childhood screening at age 3. Not at 4, not at 5. If you bring your child in at age 3 for that screening, you can walk away with a free device and a year's worth of educational content already paid for. And the success of that is just getting people in the door to do that. We might be able to track with some help from Amazon how many books those kids are reading, what their activities are, how much time they're spending using some of that educational content. But the real point here is to get those kids in as early as possible for that early childhood screening so they can get connected with other resources if they need them. If there are some developmental issues, getting people on track as early as possible. It's just one more piece in that effort. Be hard to track it back, similar to everything else Live, Learn, Earn does. I think it's really hard to trace back with the percent of kindergartners screened at 3 as an example. Live, Learn, Earn put flyers out there promoting early childhood screening. They launched a texting program promoting early childhood screening. Since those things have happened, the rates have increased. I would not be the first person to say, pat Live, Learn, Earn on the back, we're the ones responsible for that and we deserve the credit. But we're trying to do things to help move those in the right direction, and the school districts and those families are the ones who deserve the credit.
So I'm going to adjust a little bit, although it still kind of relates to this topic. But in the write-up on page 7, let me go back there. One of the things that's talked about is that the nature of this type of work is cyclical. And as Chris alluded to, and Jake, you talked about that Live, Learn, Earn is really a way of doing business. So we obviously are talking through a lot of data and looking at some trends. But as we talk about maybe being in a change cycle here, how do you see that change kind of changing the way we look at this data, we approach this work, and what does that reevaluation look like?
Yeah, I think that it's really loud. I do think that we're at a point where we're going to need to look at some of the data. If you look at the figure 8 here, I think we have seen this in various models. I think Gary Shelton used to talk about this with scale as well, right? Like you've got a time where you need to try to pull the data that you've been looking at together to determine where's your next step. How do you, as a community, look to evaluate and impact change? I think take the work readiness group, for example, we thought a couple different areas we wanted to lean in on was looking at both the post-secondary and is there a better way to kind of televise the job opportunities that are available. We've been moving forward on both of those avenues, and now we know that our environment as it pertains to work readiness looks really different than it did 6 months ago. I think last time, about a year ago, we were here talking about labor market, and we knew that at that time we had a labor shortage, and now we're seeing higher unemployment rates just due to the situations that have happened this year. So what does that mean for us? I think one of the pieces of this group has always talked about, we don't actually drive the initiatives, but we can help create the conditions that make for things to happen in a positive direction. So I think it's probably, we are at one of those moments where we want to take a look at the fresh data that's out there, like we did with Tim O'Neill that came to scale a couple weeks ago. What does that mean for us? Where can we see opportunities? For example, he had talked about many of our manufacturing positions within the county. We have so many people that are 55 years of age or older. Well, is that an opportunity then for our younger group to be trained in those positions to create life-sustaining, livable jobs here within the community? So I think we have opportunities to look at how we connect and reposition ourselves, but every once in a while you just have to go through that cycle of analyzing your data and looking at how you readjust and add new initiatives to what you need to do to achieve better results.
All I'll add from a perspective is the problems that Live, Learn, Earn takes on are complex, and they've been around for quite some time. What is it, the truism? The problems we face today cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that went into their creation. And what I've been very appreciative of is the importance of having some patience and also continuity to these workflows. Danny alluded to on the grade 3 reading scores, the importance of the tactic or the implementation or the attempt to change effect can only be measured 3-4 years in the future. When we're talking a pre-K age 3 screening, and then we're talking graduation rates with an 18-year-old, that's 15 years. And I think the importance of patience, but also continuity to many of these initiatives, continuity of who's on these teams, so the importance of the county plays with staff participation to bring along the many learnings as elected, either fortunately or unfortunately, come and go. That continuity can be lost, as well as having the voice of the citizens here, but these are complex issues that have been around for quite some time, requiring collaboration and then sticking to some of these initiatives to affect long-term change.
I want to just pause and give any of our remote folks a chance to talk about that. We sometimes, because you're not in the room, it's harder to jump in. So I wonder if there's anyone of the remote presenters that wants to speak either to some educational outcomes or to that sort of cyclical nature, sustained leadership that Kurt just spoke about, or Mayor Briggs just spoke about, and just give you, the remote presenters, a chance to speak. Hey, Brad.
Chris, this is Brad.
Hi.
Just a comment on the new cycle work. I think we're so fortunate that we do have 4 fighters under our belt, because I can't think of an initiative that's better poised to get us through and think through this economic recovery that we're looking at. When you look at some articles of changing work patterns, commute times are changing, where people are deciding to live is changing. All of this because of kind of the uncertainty that we're in. And you look on page 7, what are the key things that we're looking at? That's housing, transit, how we're going to get people to work, how we're going to get people to our different destinations. I think those are the key issues we're going to need to think through in this recovery period. And I can't think of a better initiative that's poised to look at these issues across 4 pillars. So that's how I kind of think about the new cycle work, really helping us tackle the big issues in front of us.
Thanks for speaking to that. Can you be on hold just for a second, Jake? Brad, I mean, you lead so many of the planning efforts here at Scott County, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you see the work of Live, Learn, Earn interfacing with the Unified Transit Plan, the housing plan. Like, we have a lot of plans, like how does this get pulled together in a way that maximizes our impact?
You bet, and we spent a lot of time on this in our technical teams at scale. We've spent a lot of time looking at our comprehensive plans, our housing plans, our transportation plans. And really the beauty of scale is that we spend so much time sharing information, doing the best we can to coordinate those plans. And I think there's a recognition that now we need to do some prioritization out of those plans. All of us have really good ideas in our housing chapters, but until we can really get everyone together and determine what are the key priorities we need to think about across all of our communities, we really kind of struggle. We don't know where do we invest when different opportunities come up. So I think we really are at that stage of we've all done our plans individually. Now it's time to come together and think what are the key priorities.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. For this cycle of work on page 7, still you see the bolded list at the bottom of some of the actions that have come out of the last few years of work. And a few of those are further planning. In the case of the housing blueprint, probably a plan that's a little bit overdue. The Unified Transit Plan is a big update. And the other bullets there are work that is moving forward. I won't say because of Live, Learn, Earn, but with Live, Learn, Earn's support. And a lot of the work in those bullets will continue for months and years down the road. So we'll have to continue to support that and inform that work and maybe shape some of that work. But at the same time, to Barb's point about looking at the latest data, to Mayor Briggs's point about being patient, I think we also then have to look 5-10 years down the road to make sure we're connecting tomorrow's dots as much as we possibly can, so that 3 years from now, we have another set of bullets, just like the ones we have here on page 7 today, keeping that longer term work going and keeping those partnerships and relationships active.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brennan, I just want to give you a chance to speak around the education or the Live, Learn, Earn cycles before we move on, if you wish.
Thank you. The city of Shakopee and the First Stop Shop and the Minnesota State University in Mankato has been working on the Innovation Center that is down in the downtown Shakopee area. And we recognize the need for connecting people to the businesses and learning about what the businesses do, the skills that are needed. Also supporting entrepreneurship in Scott County and in Shakopee and Greater Scott County, and in supporting those efforts to bring in new ideas and new small business opportunities. So it ties into education, and we're going to be hopefully bringing in the younger people in the elementary age through high school, and then beyond in the secondary. I think it's a great opportunity. I really appreciate all the support that has been given from the Live, Learn, and Earn committee and the different cities and organizations behind it.
Thank you.
So if it's okay with the group, I actually have some questions about some of the housing information. So going through, and again, I feel like I'm on a tangent of trying to tell a story through the data because I'm going to jump around from a few slides again, but this is the percent of householders age 75 or over who own or rent their home. And this data has been fairly flat over the time period we have, and I realize the data is a little bit older. But then going back to our existing units, so 5 units for residents age 55 and over, and our wait list. And our existing units is not much bigger than our actual wait list for this sort of the part of the population. So my question really there is, what is our efforts to expand this availability for people to allow them to live in a place that they are able to own and rent? And how are we leveraging the private sector through incentivizing them in order to help them meet those goals within the county?
Sure. So a couple of things that we've heard about households who are 75 and older. Obviously, our households are living longer and they're living healthily longer. And so they have the ability to stay in their home. They're not always in a position where they're ready to transition yet into a senior living place. They like the independence. They like that things have been paid off. And so they don't have those ongoing expenses. As you can see from the waiting list, there certainly is demand for these type of units. But what we also find is that, you know, people are on the list, but maybe they're not quite ready to move yet. Maybe they're not ready to sell their home when their name comes to the top, so they continue to kind of cycle on this list. We certainly, at the CDA, you know, we develop 55 plus units ourselves. The cities, I know, have different incentives that they do to try to bring a variety of housing types in the community. You know, maybe there's more villas that need to be built or more detached townhomes that would, you know, support not only the apartments that the CDA has, but offer those a variety of housing types in the community.
A couple of other one on a little bit different track, but this slide shows the share of households paying 30% or more of income for housing, and generally speaking, there's been a downward trend, and so kind of positive results there. And then we also have our supply of affordable workforce housing, and this is all driven by our Maxfield housing study of how many we need to build by 2025, and it actually looks like we've made some really substantial good progress on this based on this chart to meet that 2025 goal. What sort of planning is going on in order to keep that trajectory moving forward for that 2025 goal?
So we have had really great success in being able to increase the supply of affordable housing. And I think Live, Learn, Earn has done a really good job of bringing partners together to have conversations to help people understand what does this type of housing really mean? How does it support our workforce? What are the jobs in our community that support the need for more affordable housing? We are constantly having conversations with developers to make sure that those planning for the future units are in place. Talking with the cities about different land parcels that they have in their comprehensive plans that would be good for developments like this. So really having that conversation with the private sector, with the state of Minnesota, who provides funding for a variety of these, with the cities to understand where the developments would work well in their community.
You know, can I just pose a kind of a bigger question really to any of the presenters? And when we worked on the county's strategic plan last year, we had lots of conversation about the county's role in housing and what our responsibility was and what was the best way to address the needs of people in our community in collaboration with our partners. And so I'm just wondering, as you work together in this collaborative work, like how do you approach that? I think in the narrative, which it sounds like Jay Grusing wrote, but it talked about we trip over each other sometimes, we step on each other's toes, but we like come together and sort of figure it out. And I'm wondering, how do you do that? How do you figure out what people's roles are, what their responsibilities are, and how do we do this in a way so that we're most effectively addressing the need?
I think, we did have a lot of those conversations, and the big thing for me that kind of stood out was those relationships, understanding what the different roles are, knowing, like when opportunities come up, who do we need to contact to potentially make this happen in our community. Oftentimes, it's not just one player. And I think one of the advantages of Live, Learn, Earn is we've been able to talk about, from the housing perspective, not just housing in isolation. So if there's opportunities to come up, how do these things impact our vulnerable population? How do these impact our seniors? How does it impact the workforce? And how can we make sure that we're taking advantage of opportunities that come up so that they're in the best interests of our citizens?
Thanks. How about from the city's perspective? I'd be curious about those roles and responsibilities. Pieces are difficult to navigate sometimes.
I think from city perspective, and again, reflecting back, Prior Lake and housing, for example, absent Live, Learn, Earn, absent scale, I think cities can find ourselves in this wonderful echo chamber where we can just continue to do what we've always done. And what is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. As it relates to housing, this is one that looking across the county I think is important. I noticed on slide 14, if I can go to slide 14, was it 14? 14, Prior Lake is missing here. And yet I happen to know, in terms of units age 55 plus, the fastest growing housing type is the villa housing type in Prior Lake. The other thing is we just cut a ribbon on a transitional care this past week, Summers Ridge. This 55 plus housing demand in Prior Lake is exploding right now because families want to bring their parents into close proximity. So Live, Learn, Earn, to me, one of the huge benefits of participating is to see issues from a county perspective, to force you out of your echo chamber, to recognize the differences of your community, but also the similarities of your community. And where providing the full life cycle housing product type in your housing is also vitally important. It is not one where, on this issue, and this one is very, very challenging. And it's one for me that, my position and my thoughts on housing have evolved dramatically from where I was in, if I may say, 2017 to where I am in 2020.
Thanks, Mayor. All right. Danny, did you have other questions related to housing? All right. Let's talk about, Let's talk about employment. And this is Barb, I think you started to preview that this is a different time to be talking about the workforce, to be talking about education, or to be talking about unemployment. We had positioned ourselves with a really low unemployment rate at the end of last year. And I'm wondering if you could talk about what is the work that LLE is involved in right now to look at the changing environment. And Darren, I think, Brad talked about this is the perfect group to sort of strategize around that.
Yeah, so as I talked about a little bit ago, what a difference a few months makes, right? In the world of unemployment, we've seen really dramatic changes. We've seen a little bit of a little bit of an improvement over the last couple months. I think Minnesota State unemployment rate that came out last week for the month of September was 6%, so down from, I think, 9.9 earlier. So that's a sign of improvement, but I think we don't know what's in front of us. And I think that's the part that when you look at the strategies that Live, Learn, Earn wanted to take a look at, one was around post-secondary education. And I think both the city of Shakopee and Darren have made really some fantastic headway on how do we look to try to fill that gap that we don't have that currently within the community. The other piece was we wanted to look at how do you kind of market or televise the jobs that are available. We know that there are employers right now that are still having a hard time finding people. And so how do we help make those connections better between people that aren't working versus those that are? So I think as the board approved last time you all met, is that we'll be moving forward on the website idea that the Live, Learn, Earn group had discussed and talked about. We also wanted to look at what does that look, what do we look like in terms of economic development? Do we have kind of the right position? Are we positioning ourselves to help spur innovation and make sure that we're continuing to grow and encourage employers in our community? And then how do you better link your local youth with local positions? And so I think there's still some work that can be done on those two areas, both and always, right? Like we should always be continuing to spur and support economic development within the community. But I think this just creates a different opportunity, a different lens to look through. Some of those initiatives are the same, but I do think this does give us an opportunity to look at what else could or should we be doing as a community to help support both employment and workforce development. We want both to occur and be successful.
Have you folks had a chance to talk yet about what that might look like as you think about moving through that change diagram that Jake and others talked about?
You know, I think Stacy and I just briefly talked a little bit ago about that. It probably starts with looking at having Tim O'Neill join our group again and looking at data, looking at gaps. What does this tell us? Where can we find and spark innovation? How do we bring other partners to the table? Because as we saw last time, you've got, like with the city of Shakopee and Darren, they were able to move forward on some really great momentum. And so we'd want to see that again as we move forward. So.
Okay, thanks. Other people have comments about LLE as the group as the restart, not restart, that's not, as you move through that developmental cycle and addressing, particularly thinking about the COVID environment that we're in. Are there anything, other plans that you want to speak to?
You know, one thing too, we have our dashboard in here, and our dashboard has really been mirrored after Greater MSP and how they have developed theirs, and they compare theirs and us, our regional market, across to others that are similar to us, so say Seattle, across the country, to see how we compare. This we've kind of used to benchmark against ourselves. How have we been improving kind of over time from a community indicator standpoint? So I don't know if maybe, I know that Greater MSP, and I know Stacy's on the call here, so I don't want to, I think you still are, put you on the spot, but I know that there's even been some talk about looking at their dashboard indicators. Does that need to be a little bit more real time right now in the midst of, so that we kind of keep an eye on this? I think they're looking at even some unique indicators like open table, like how many people are actually making reservations online to see, so that you're looking at more of a predictive indicator versus some of these are really lag indicators, right? Like we are way behind the times when we're grabbing this data a year, 2 years down the road. Is there something that we can grab that's more upfront so that can be a little more predictive so that we can get in front of it? So I throw that out there, and I don't know if Stacy, you actually saw the presentation, if you've got anything to comment on that. Okay, so it might be something that we can look at. Are there some different indicators?
I guess one thing I would caution us in Live, Learn, Earn from doing is we look at the metrics and we look at the dashboards. Not all that measured, can be measured counts, and not all that counts can be measured. I am a fan of fewer metrics than more metrics for a couple of reasons. One is to make clear what it is we're looking to achieve, even though the change may occur over a protracted period of time, back to the patient's argument. So I think looking at the metrics on an annual basis and asking the question, not only which way are the arrows moving, but are they the right metrics? And can we do a better job at distilling, and in so doing, enhance our effectiveness?
Thank you. I'm aware of the time, And so I would like to turn it back over to the chairman and certainly give the commissioners any opportunity to ask questions that they would like. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, a quick question. Where's the page that showed, the learning from Belle Plaine School, Jordan, all that stuff?
That was
17 or something?
the screening rate?
Yeah, something, yeah.
Or was it the third grade?
Just where they were reading at third grade level, is that it?
There you go.
Okay.
Oh,
So this is screening.
This
For the
is
screen,
third grade.
okay.
yep.
So last, I see. So last meeting, Gary Shelton gave out, 20, I can't remember, for all those Kindles. Do we believe those things work for kids? And maybe Jake, if he's on, he could maybe
Yeah,
answer that.
Jake, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am.
Did you hear the question?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. I think the answer is probably a complicated one.
Okay.
I personally would say I don't think those devices, those tablets, will do any harm.
Okay.
I think if we had a pediatrician in the room, the pediatrician would say that probably isn't the best thing we could do for a 3-year-old, to put another screen, in front of that person, or to give them access to another screen. So I do think there are probably a variety of responses to that. Some actually based on research, some based more on gut feeling and opinion. For how we're using them, how we intend to use them, I think they will do a fair amount of good. That we're using them as an incentive to get kids to come in for their early childhood screening at age 3. After that, they will have access to that device that has ebooks on it, it has educational applications on it. I think if they use those responsibly, and that's, asking the parents to do that and trying to support them in doing that, to use the educational apps, to not have kids on, YouTube or social media, but really a narrow focus. I think there's great potential for some good, and potentially a lot of good. I don't know that that's a great answer to your question, but it feels true to me.
Yeah, and all I'm getting, kind of what I'm getting at is, I think Shelton said last meeting, it was about 79 or 75 bucks per unit. Does anybody, Mike?
That's right.
What, is that right?
That's right, yes.
So I'm thinking, we spend about 120 or, like $10,000 per pupil per year in this state, right? So if we just put 79 bucks in to get them to learn.
Does that sound like a good investment
I
for
just
you?
think that sounds like a great investment, because I look at building a house, you can't say, oh, let's just throw some sticks, and you got all this. Well, geez, we should have done something more on the basement level to get this thing to, when these kids are younger, that's the base level of their learning, in my opinion. And that's when we should front end. And if it's just 79 bucks to help them to get to that, because I think that's a really big deal. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for speaking to that. That basement building is what we're trying to do, and that we hope will carry through to all these other outcomes that we're looking for. It's a good.
So remind me again, because Jake and I had a little discussion on this prior to the last meeting, but we can't, and I think somebody alluded to it, we can't necessarily get data from those devices because we're giving them, right? I mean, they're not Scott County devices. They're, yeah.
Gonna chip people.
Right, which I think is sort of important to.
It's important to say, yes.
To say that.
Yes, it is.
That we don't have some sort of back end of that. And it's unfortunate, but it has to be
Yes.
said. And they have 1 year subscription. I'm kind of looking at my screen and at Chris.
Yes.
They get 1 year subscription to these educational things. And I forget, and Jake, you probably told me, but are those pre-loaded and pre-set up, like that dashboard? I'll use it since we're just talking about that. But so that's set up, or we give them, paper to teach them, show them how to. I forget if it's already loaded, or do they have to go and unlock that to use it? Because I know it's a Kindle, so it'll access everything that's out there, and we're trying to get this targeted, and this is kind of our first go around at trying this, and want to try new things, which is I agree, it's an awesome opportunity, not without a little intrepidation, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. is it ready to go, or do they need to go to another screen and, yeah, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this? I forget. Is it ready to go? I don't know who can answer that.
Jake?
Maybe Jake.
All right, I'm gonna offer another potentially not so great answer.
Oh, good going.
Are you running for
Yeah,
office?
sorry. It's both. So they are ready to go. They will get them new in the box. You open it up. If you have an Amazon account, you can enter your credentials, and that's all you have to do. I was able to get it from opening the box to reading ebooks in about 8 minutes. So you can get going right away without having to do anything else. There are additional steps. They don't come sort of locked down. So the support that we'll have to provide, and the school districts, we hope, will also help us provide to the parents, is to go onto that parent dashboard, and then you can set targets, you can limit certain apps, you can completely restrict access to different things. So we'd like the opportunity to try to talk through, or at least give them some information about how to do that and why it would be important to do those things. Because it does come, not entirely wide open, but there's a lot of content on there, and if the parents want to lock it down, there are some additional steps they have to take.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Because we could get, in just a couple of years, we could get a lot of data, just if we did one school district, let's say Belle Plaine Jordan, and just, every kid in there, we could figure that out pretty quick, couldn't we? How they work. I don't know, maybe it's something bigger.
When they get to third grade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Part of the work that is happening through, I think through LLE, but also through some of the other groups that are working on the strategic plan, is the ability to look at specific data specific to a child that because of privacy and those kinds of things, the ability to say this child got a Kindle and this is what his reading scores are in third grade. Like, there's still a lot of work to do to be able to make that specific data available.
Okay.
We can look at aggregate data, but so it's work in progress. Other questions? Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We might have one down here.
I'm
today.
sorry.
I
That's
got a couple.
Couple, maybe.
But I won't ask them all. Thank you, and thanks to everybody for being here. I think it makes me feel so good when I see the buy-in from so many different people, organizations, departments, even content areas towards our same goal here. I hope that somebody goes back to the tape and writes down Darren's statement starting off. What a testimonial. I haven't always been the best supporter, cheerleader of Live, Learn, Earn, and Jake's probably smirking right now. But that I needed to hear. I needed to hear things like that from people in our community saying, because of this, we're doing so much better. And I needed to be reminded again, because I'm a little slow, this isn't a program, this isn't even an initiative. This is a way of life and a way of working. And what I think has really helped me over especially the last year with Live, Learn, Earn is the continued buy-in of our county staff and staff from other jurisdictions and entities who say, no, we want to continue working in these groups on these projects, I don't think there's any top-down approach to be like, get to work on this. It's really driven by those people. So a little bit of confession there, a little bit of, moving forward. I think that's great. And I think Darren, in 2 sentences, really summed it up. And we need to use that to motivate people like me, to motivate us all, but to help explain what we do and what the results are with Live, Learn, Earn. I just have a quick question for Julie because Mayor Briggs brought it up, but the page 14 data, that only is housing of CDA provided shallow subsidy housing for seniors, right? So just want to make that clear because some people watch this or learn that that's maybe why Prior Lake's not on there, or Belle Plaine's not on there, is because it's not all units for residents age 55 plus, it's just that particular kind. Really important, I think, to point out because again, we're not trying to mislead anybody. It's just this is a part of the information. We know there are units for people 55 and over in Prior Lake because you stopped shipping them out, right? You keep them now. Good.
Importing.
Good. On the e-readers, and I really support that effort. And Commissioner Wolf, you're right, we spend this much on pupils. Really, we're talking about those kids before they get to the school district and how we can be involved in helping touch those and support this. I think Jake and others have heard from this board, we all would love some kind of accountability, data gathering, information, but then he has to remind us that we're the people who are usually like pro-freedom rights, let's not chip anybody. So we'll keep asking those questions and probably being moved back, but I'm really excited about that. I think what's hard is the impact of COVID. If we look at screening and you see the lowest number there is Shakopee, well, I think Shakopee until very recently hasn't been doing screening. I think they're just starting to do it with the kindergartners just because of COVID. So I think we got to double down this year and work hard because we had that gap of 9 months of not much screening going on at all. And we want to keep up these gains. So on that particular topic, I think we really, we, including me, but others who are interested, need to get to work on that and figure out how we can help the school districts get the word out as soon as they're open for business. I did a quick little search, and it looks like many of our districts are taking appointments now. Some are booked until 2021, but we need to get that out and get that opportunity going. Those are just a few of my comments, but most of all, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Yeah, if I could make a couple comments here. I see that, obviously we have objectives and we have strategies, and I would like to see a process where yearly we identify specific initiatives that are really sharp, measurable. They don't have to be one-year initiatives, but initiatives that each pillar would identify and say, in this next year, we're going to work on this initiative, or this next 2 or 3 years, we're going to work on this initiative, so that, and then we present them to each other. We did some of that in the past, where our pillars identified specific things and did report back to each other pillar group. But I think for the vibrancy of this effort, to have a yearly process where we refocus and say we're going to work on these initiatives, I think would be really healthy and helpful.
Thank you. And I would just say, thanks for being here, of course. It was very good to hear. We did have a pastor on, so it was a good day for a confessional maybe, but it was good to hear that from the presenters that this is not a program. It is not a, agency. It is not it's more of a way of life. Because I think there is a healthy balance of skepticism here and maybe out there, but like we don't want this thing to be some program and some other thing that needs to be fed, but a way of doing things. And the mayor, I like this point of we start out, human nature is we start out with, hey, we want to go there, but it takes that time, that continuity, that passion and to continue the journey even when you're not necessarily seeing the results. And we live in America, we like results. I mean, one of my favorite buttons in my home is the add 30 seconds on the microwave. I can just hit one button, I got add 30 seconds. If I need a minute, I'm hitting it twice. So to jump to the next new thing, I mean, there's times to do that. We want to be flexible to be able to address things as they arise. Anyone know anything that's come up lately? But anyway, so to have that continuity and to buckle up and be in for the long haul and to try these e-readers and they're not chipped, there's no leash to them, but to try to drive those data points that we are all in this together. We do want to drive this collaboration and collective impact and try to make a difference. So those are good things that stirred my heart and that we're marching down the right path. Even when it doesn't always seem like it. And we're all in the same boat where we know that we need to ebb and flow from time to time, and some things need to be discarded and some things need to be doubled down on. So can't wait to see these trends change and go in the right direction. So thank you everyone for your hard work and your willing to put in that work. So anything else up here or online? Anyone? Otherwise, we are going to move along.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming on in. Hope you got your snowshoes on when you leave.
Are those new shoes?
He's got the Nordic. He's going Nordic.
He's got boat shoes.
Oh man. Oh, Prior Lake. Prior Lake.
I know.
Great. Well, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is the consent agenda. And these are items that will pass in one motion that have been vetted through staff. And I will read through them now. 6.1, adopt resolution number 2020-161, authorizing entering into an agreement with EPA Audiovisual Inc. for the purchase and installation of audio equipment using Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act funding, or CARES. 6.2, adopt resolution number 2020-162, authorizing final payment to SM Henches and Sons, Inc. in the amount of $1,000 for County Project 42-17 for County Highway 42 and Trunk Highway 13 intersection improvements. 6.3, adopt resolution number 2020-163, authorizing final payment to MP Asphalt Maintenance, Inc. in the amount of $1,000 for the 2020 Trail Seal Coat Project. 6.4, adopt resolution number 2020-164, approving execution of a purchase agreement and the purchase of real property located along County Highway 17 in the city of Shakopee by an early voluntary acquisition by mutual agreement. 6.5, adopt resolution number 2020-165, approving execution of a purchase agreement and the purchase of real property by an early voluntary acquisition by mutual agreement located along County Highway 17 in the city of Shakopee. 6.6, adopt resolution number 2020-166, authorizing final payment to Sunram Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,000 for the Sand Creek Near Channel Sediment Reduction Phase 4 project in Helena Township. 6.7, adopt resolution number 2020-169, awarding a contract to Egan Company for the installation of a traffic signal system and interconnect at the intersection of County Highway 27, Connolly Parkway, in the city of Savage, or Savage. 6.8, adopt resolution number 2020-170, approving the amendment to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency 2020 Local Recycling Development Grant to increase the state's total obligation from $384,254.13 to $563,803.24. Adopt resolution 6.9, adopt resolution number 2020-174, approving execution of a purchase agreement and the purchase of real property located along County Highway 17 in the city of Shakopee by an early voluntary acquisition by mutual agreement. 6.10, adopt resolution number 2020-176, approving Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES, Special Revenue Fund to be authorized for use to cover pandemic response costs incurred in the county operation budget from no earlier than March 1st, 2020, remember those days, through September 30th, 2020. 6.11, approve record of disbursements and approve claims. 6.12, adopt resolution number 2020-167, authorizing revocation and entering into agreement for the turnback of Mobile Manor Drive to Jackson Township. 6.13, adopt resolution number 2020-168, authorizing revocation of Mobile Manor Drive to the city of Shakopee. 6.14, adopt resolution number 2020-171, authorizing the Third Amendment and restated joint powers agreement establishing the I-35W Solutions Alliance and continuing Scott County's membership on the Joint Powers Board. 6.15, adopt resolution number 2020-172, authorizing an amendment to the current agreement and entering into a new 5-year grant agreement, number 183884, with the Minnesota Department of Health for the statewide health improvement program, SHIP. 6.16, approve the request for rezoning of 40 acres from A1, Agricultural Preservation District, to A3, Agricultural Preservation Density. Carol Bauer, applicant, and Carol and Roger Bauer, property owners, in Section 23 of Belle Plaine Township. 6.17, approve the request for rezoning of 95.32 acres from UER, Urban Expansion Reserve, to UER-C, Urban Expansion Reserve Cluster District, John Messenbrink, applicant, and John and Mary Messenbrink, property owners, in Section 10 of Credit River Township. 6.18, approve payroll processing of personnel actions. 6.19, adopt resolution number 2020-177, setting a public hearing date of November 17th, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. to receive comments and consider an amendment to the capital improvement program. Those are the 19, I like to go through and add some, 19 items on the consent agenda. Are there any that would like to be polled for further conversation? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to pull 6.15 for some discussion and possible amendment. And
right.
just as you were reading it, if I can jump to 6.19 for a
Yep.
moment. We're setting the public hearing for 10:30 that morning. We start at 9, and sometimes meetings are brief. Are we going to be sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for 10:30? Or has that one, do we have a big agenda and are we thinking that one through?
I see Danny approaching the,
I believe we have Scott County Delivers that morning.
Oh, we'll have plenty to talk about.
And possibly the helipad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll leave 619 alone.
Might be 1:30.
Yeah, yeah.
Should not be a problem. Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just pull 6.15.
all right, so 6.19 is good, but we want to pull 6.15.
Mr. Chair, also, I don't want to pull an item, but I would like to comment briefly on the items where we're purchasing houses. There's, I think, several of those in our agenda today. What I would like is, in the future, some kind of report when we purchase a house that states it's been evaluated for transitional housing and it has potential or it doesn't have potential. For transitional housing, I think in the past when we purchased houses along a busy right away, the access to the road, County Road 42 or wherever it might be, could have been changed or could be changed, and then that house might have been able to be used for transitional housing of some kind. So I guess I would like each home to have whether it's one little paragraph, this house has been evaluated for another use, and it's determined that it would not be, or it could be, just include that as part of the process.
That's a fair point, because we definitely have talked about that, and it would just have one more check in the process to make sure, so that's good. So those are the comments. So we have 19 items with wanting to pull 6.15 for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the other 18 items on consent.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Otherwise, we will have a roll call vote for the consent agenda minus 6.15.
Commissioner Weckman-Brecky?
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Beard?
Aye.
Commissioner Beer?
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich?
Aye.
All right, so are we set at this time to look at 6.15?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I've always had some questions about the whole SHIP program and have gone along with Scott County's participation in it. I think it's been a series of 2-year agreements to this point. And of course, because of the pandemic and the quarantine particularly, things have slowed down, and so there's a reasonable request to do an extension of the current grant, which expires, I believe, at the end of November, to allow those funds and the continuation of the program until the end of June 2021. That strikes me as a reasonable request. However, slipped into here is a new 5-year agreement that will begin on November 21st, or November 1st of this year, and kind of overlap with next year's extension and run for 5 years. That is a kind of a new development, and I think there's also a budgetary impact in there in that there's a change in the program. I know you're shocked that St. Paul would change a program once we're in it, but they do those things. There's now a county match required. I think it's 10%. But nonetheless, Mr. Chairman, it's something we shouldn't put on the consent agenda, in my opinion. So what I'm going to ask my colleagues to support is a motion to divide the question, and I'll give you some language here in just a moment, to go ahead and approve the extension until June 21st to allow the program to run, and they can work with the things that they're working with now. And I'm asking staff if they would come back on the 27th, which is next week. I think we have a budget workshop, and take a few moments to explain what the new 5-year program is about, what's changed, and I'd like to ask some data-driven questions about what's going on here and how's this all working, and should we continue to be involved in a program that may be cut pretty drastically with the state facing a possible $4 billion deficit. I know I'm gonna be making some recommendations to my legislative friends about places they could probably pare back. And they're gonna have to pare back something. It's just a foregone conclusion. Anyhow, I think I've said enough about my reasons for pulling it, but with that, Mr. Chairman, if you're prepared, I'd like to offer a resolution that's amended from what's here and speak to that if it gets a second. And I'm gonna have to ask staff to help us with this because we have a lengthy resolution. It's on page 105 of our packet. Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend Resolution 2020-172 to say this, to say authorizing an amendment to the current agreement, to a current agreement, and then striking the words and entering into a new 5-year grant agreement number 183884, strike those words so that it says authorizing an amendment to the current agreement with the Minnesota Department of Health for the statewide health insurance program known as SHIP. That would be my motion. That's what the new resolution would read. And then we're gonna have to ask staff to go through the whereases here that give the support. Probably the third whereas will have to be struck. That's the one extending a 5-year grant. And the fourth one would probably be struck as well.
Commissioner?
And
I think we can go through and find anything, you know, like
find
we
those?
talked this morning, anything relative to the 5-year extension and take
Yes.
those out of the whereases for you.
Yep, because now therefore be resolved is gonna have to be amended or edited as well to match that. So with my colleagues' forbearance, that's the motion, and if we can trust staff to fix up the whereases as they sign our names to, Mr. Chairman, if it gets a second, I'll speak to it briefly again if you wish.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that, as I've said in my opening comments, I think this allows the program that we've agreed to this point to continue because to shake off the effects of the pandemic and the quarantine through the end of June 30th, 2021, which is the end of this, which is a break in the state's fiscal year. And then if we want to renew for another 5 years, we're going to have a chance next week at the board, at the workshop to ask those questions. And staff has assured me that if we want to extend this or re-enter a new agreement, passing that in a November or December board meeting certainly does not negatively impact the ability to participate further for another 5 years. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd urge adoption of the amended resolution.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
That was my only
Okay,
question.
okay.
Commissioner Beard answered.
It was
Beard
dates.
answered it.
And I hope that this is not a TMI moment, but you know, we get these notices to obviously go through our packets. And when I read through 6.15, I want to say that your face immediately came to mind. I hope that's not.
With some donuts.
Yeah, with some donuts.
Oh, well, that part maybe the next time, but, so I had a feeling. So, all right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Otherwise, I will look to Tracy.
Commissioner Wickman-Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
All
Thank
right.
you, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So passes as amended. All right, moving to item number 7.1, looking to adopt resolution number 2020-175, authorizing submittal of comments on the Metropolitan Council's draft amendment to the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan. Good morning, Patty. Is it still morning? It is still morning. Okay, good morning.
Good morning, nice to see you. My name is Patty Freeman. I'm the general manager of the Scott County Parks and Trails program. And I'm here with you this morning to provide some context for this item. And if the board members have any questions, to try to answer those questions. The Metropolitan Parks and Trails system spreads across the 7 metro area counties. It consists of 55,000 acres of outdoor recreation land, 64 regional parks, park reserves, and special recreation features, 55 regional trails, and I'm happy to report in 2019 over 63 million visits. That might be a new number to the board. Typically, we get those annual visit numbers the June after the summer that they're collected. And I don't think I've had the opportunity to share that with the board. And in that 63 million visits, Scott County had about 850,000 visits, which is up from the year before. This is my first time presenting with a mask on. It's a little interesting.
It sounds just fine to me.
Yeah. The Regional Parks Policy Plan is the document that provides really the long-range, long-term, I should say, vision for the regional park system and sets sort of the guiding policy. The document really focuses on 4 main areas. It defines all the different system components, so what's a regional park versus a park reserve, et cetera. It also identifies the actual system plan. So throughout the 7-county metro area, including Scott County, which facilities have regional designation. That's what the system plan means. The document also includes guiding policies, as I mentioned, with a lot of emphasis on planning requirements, and then it outlines financing of the system. The 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan was prepared in 2014. It was updated in 2018. The Met Council has a statutory requirement to revisit it every 4 years. And they also are allowed to amend it here and there, and that's what we're in the midst of right now. So real quickly, the amendment pieces that I wanted to chat with the board about include the system additions, because Scott County does have a couple system additions that are part of the amendment. Clarification of bridging facilities. Although I have to say, the bridging facilities item is not part of our comment letter. And given the long morning you're having, I would propose that I skip over that piece. I'm happy to come back and talk to you about it at a future time. It's not pertinent to our public comment letter. It just sort of was something I thought you might be interested in. So I'm going to go ahead, unless I hear otherwise, to skip over that part. There's a new policy related to boundary adjustments that I'll mention. And I wanted to highlight for the board 3 parts of the work plan that the council includes in its 2040 policy plan. So real quick, in terms of process, Met Council kicked this off in late 2019. They hosted meetings with the 10 regional park agencies, including Scott County, MPOSC, and CDC. Really, the biggest part of this plan amendment is the system additions. This was an opportunity for all the regional agencies who had wanted to add new facilities as a part of our comp plan process. Now is the opportunity for us to do that. The council usually also takes the opportunity to adjust some of its policies. So as I mentioned, the draft amendment is now published. There was a public hearing on it yesterday. They're taking comments through October 30th. And the agenda that we're addressing right now is related to the county's comments. So throughout the system, 26 new or expanded regional parks, trails, or search areas for those future parks or trails are part of the amendment. All the circles and lines that have a more purplish color are what's being added. So you can see in Scott County, can you see my cursor? Mm-hmm. Here we have a regional trail search corridor and one right here up near Credit River and Savage, and then down here between Cedar Lake Farm and the city of New Prague. There's the slide. I thought I had it earlier. We'll jump back to visitation real quick. Here's, you can see in 2019, we have our 850,000 visits there. So this graph just shows us that we are definitely, as we would hope, as we've added facilities and our population has grown, our annual visitation to our park system has grown. All right, getting back to the...
Quick question.
Oh, sure.
Just generally, what's the Three Rivers entire...
use?
Yes. Throughout their system, just roughly. I mean, it's not a big...
Yep, I think it's, gosh, I want to come back and confirm, but I want to say it's like 12 million.
Okay.
And Minneapolis would be like, closer to 20 million. I do know that the regional system now consistently outpaces the Mall of America. So society is doing well. All right, moving on to our system addition specific to Scott County. We have 2 regional trails. In south central Scott County, we have the search corridor down here, anchoring Cedar Lake Farm with the city of New Prague. And then up here, we have a regional trail intended to connect the Big Woods Regional Trail, formerly known as the Scott West Regional Trail, to Dakota County's Lake Marion Greenway. And I wanted to mention that during the 2017-2018 preparation of the 2040 plan, there was a lot of input from residents, as well as our community partners on an interest in more regional trails and better connected regional trails.
Mr. Chairman, Patty, isn't there a trail system now through Murphy-Hanrahan Park Reserve? Quite an extensive list of trails there, isn't there?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, the trails that are within Murphy-Hanrahan Park Reserve include hiking trails, mountain biking trails, so they're soft surface trails.
Oh, okay.
They're not what we would expect as a paved accessible trail.
So that doesn't exist through there right now. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Real quickly, I'll get into a little bit of detail about each of the proposed trail search corridors. Starting with the one down by Cedar Lake Farm. This is envisioned to be a 3 to 6 mile destination trail. A destination trail emphasizes an experience or a trail alignment that wants to focus more of a, rather than along roads, more of a scenic setting. Typically with a destination trail, the corridor width is anywhere from the standard sort of 25 feet, which gives you a 10-foot paved trail and then maintenance strips. So anywhere from that 25 feet all the way up to 100 feet and 200 feet widths where there might be scenic opportunity and an opportunity for conservation, land conservation. We envision this planning effort in the 5 to 7, maybe 8 years into the future. We'd be working closely with our community partners. We do think that there's some interesting opportunities to partner with the Scott Soil and Water Conservation District and maybe the WMO for collaborative easements and through development.
Patty, I just have one question. Is there a minimum length of a trail to be called a destination trail?
Gosh, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I don't know if I have the answer to that. I can certainly look into it and get back to you. I'm not sure.
Well, she might have a list because all of her trails are destination trails. You just check, maybe.
I do know that they definitely, it's more of a focus on a setting where someone might want to drive quite a ways to experience it.
That's what I was wondering, to drive, transport bikes, whatever. It just gives me some perspective on value and cost is where we're at on that.
Absolutely. The reason I include the graphic on the top right there is to show you, we've highlighted the sort of higher quality water resources, wetlands, woodlands, forests, with the idea that as we plan the alignment, we will look at opportunities, not just in those areas, but that we'll try to piece together something that makes it an interesting trail that has multiple public benefit. Let's see here. Moving on to the trail in the Savage and Credit River area. This is envisioned to be similar length, but a linking trail. So more along the lines of our existing Big Woods Regional Trail, with the emphasis really being to connect our regional facilities with neighborhoods to the north and west of the park reserve. Portions of the trail could also be inside the park reserve. That remains to be seen. We also think we have similar opportunities to partner with the SWCD, the city, the township, and others on trail easements. I'm going to move right along through the bridging facilities and jump to our boundary adjustments. Previously, if a boundary adjustment to a park or a trail was needed, the agencies did that through a master planning process. And this new amendment adds a requirement that any major boundary adjustments would also have to be considered through either the every 4-year update of the Regional Parks Policy Plan or an amendment to the plan. My sense is that this policy came out of a concern at Met Council about the cost of adding acreage to the metro-wide system. I would say that I did not hear that concern echoed from the regional park agencies because they really stay more focused on their local jurisdiction. There's a lot of dialogue around this, and council changed, there had been an actual acreage amount. Council changed that based on input from the park agencies, and they decided to keep it just defined as a major boundary adjustment. There's some concern that the extra step and extended timeline could potentially result in a lost opportunity for an agency. If you're working with something that is in imminent threat of development or something, there's potential that a landowner won't have extra year or two to wait. I'm not sure how they will handle swapping of parcels. So there could be a situation where an agency wants to add maybe 40 acres on this side of a park and take it out in another area. Is that going to be considered something that's required to go through the full process? That remains to be seen. Major is ambiguous, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that signals that the council will work with us to try to do sort of whatever the common sense thing is. I would say in general, the entire conversation around this lacked a little bit of recognition on the complexity of acquisitions and that there's a third party involved. It's the council, it's the local jurisdiction, and it's the private landowner. It's sometimes more of an art than a science in being a good neighbor, doing what's right for a local jurisdiction, as well as hitting the criteria that the council has. So in the comment letter, at this point, it states that would the council please consider some sort of expedited process if they keep the requirement in. So is there an expedited process to do an amendment to the plan or to eliminate the policy and go with the practice as we've done over the last couple decades? Any questions about the boundary adjustment?
I think there's wisdom in that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Master planning requirements. The new requirements are centered around public engagement expectations. And this is actually a clarification from going back all the way to 2014, where the Met Council really had some ideas on what they envisioned for public engagement. And the 10 regional park agencies spent hours and hours trying to bring to the table our experience and desires for transparent, good public engagement. And you might recall there were some struggles with the Met Council really focused on one way of engaging the public, and the agency saying, really, the bread and butter of getting people involved is first getting them involved in the master planning. So we requested, we actually did a joint letter at that time saying, here are our suggestions, let's do public engagement, really, really enhance it in master planning. And that's what is now included in this amendment. The requirement is termed the EAR, appropriately, equity analysis requirement. And essentially, within our master planning processes, it expects that we will do a really good examination and reporting on what are our demographics of our jurisdiction, around our whatever park or trail we're master planning, how much of that demographic is included in our planning process, and how was that input taken into consideration. It's pretty straightforward, in good engagement, and is being transparent. And at this point, the draft letter from the county states that we welcome the progression of clarification from 2014 to this amendment.
Mr. Chair, Patty, I just have a question, Patty, about this part, the master planning requirements. How do you see this will impact our costs and time frame for us? I mean, I think we can say, yep, that all sounds good, but I'd like to know how will this impact our costs and time frame?
I don't. I think it impacts time a little bit. I do think that's the way that Scott County has approached our master plans starting 10 years ago. We were doing this anyway. I think that we've learned more, and I think we're more efficient at it, and I think we've become more sophisticated. So I don't really think it needs to add cost. I think there are some agencies that might choose to hire a consultant at different times to do this work. We're not doing that in the Cleary Master Plan right now, and we're gonna see how it goes. I think that a few years ago, we really doubled down as a team, as a parks team, working actually with our public health group, and said, let's establish better community relationships across all groups. And I think that's we're really hitting the ground with that with the Cleary Plan, and we're gonna see how it goes, and it's not adding any extra time or money.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the question. All right, the next area that our comments to the council cover are the work plan chapter. So the council has a work plan chapter, and they've announced 3 new topics. And the first of those is to develop a long-range vision for the regional trail system. And generally speaking, as a staff perspective, I think it's a good idea. I think the regional trail system is an extensive system. There's a lot of cost involved in it. It's being developed at a very different pace throughout the region. I would say that Scott County and Carver County, for instance, are probably on the fringe of not being able to keep up with the rest of the region. And I think it makes sense for us as all the 10 agencies in the council to go through a process where we look at what is the long-term vision. We would request that the council look to the agencies as an equal partner in convening and setting the agenda for the topic and identifying the stakeholders. And that is reflected within the comment letter. The second work plan topic from the council is that they will conduct a cultural historical study that describes and documents the impacts of inequitable policies and how that has impacted the regional park system. And we didn't really hear much more about that other than that statement. And so at this point, the comments reflect that the county values, it's important to understand culture and the history that shapes our region, and that we look forward to learning more. I think that this was an attempt for the council to try to provide resources to the jurisdictions as we do public engagement. That's my sense.
Mr. Chair, Patty, thank you for deftly responding to that point. As to most of us, we would read that as looking for an opportunity to complain about the way things used to be or something like that. And I think our response to that is very measured, and you put a positive scent on that comment. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. And the third work plan topic I wanted to make the board aware of is the announcement that the council is interested in exploring development of a land acknowledgement that recognizes and respects Indigenous residents and the histories of the land where our parks are located. And similar to the cultural historical study, at this point we've included in the draft letter that, again, we definitely value the importance of understanding culture and history in shaping our region. And we look forward to hearing about more. And one thing that a few of the agencies questioned, and it puzzled me, is very respectfully, is the Met Council the best group for this, to be leading this topic? And I certainly don't have a suggestion about who should, but all the agencies were scratching their heads a little bit about why this was coming from Met Council. So I thought it was something to share with the board.
Did they give any indication about how far back in history they want to go?
They did not,
They did.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair and
Just a
Commissioner.
question, just a question.
Okay, so as a wrap up, the agenda item today is looking for the board's authorization for the draft comment letter. It addresses the 2 system additions for Scott County, makes comments on the boundary adjustment policy. It welcomes the public engagement requirements and responds to the 3 new work plan topics. may I provide any further information to the board or try to answer questions?
Anything else here or online?
No, Mr. Chair, I'll move the resolution number 2020-175 authorizing submittal of comments on the Metropolitan Council's draft amendment to the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to second it and thank Patty for her measured and astute comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just one more item. Thanks, Patty. I think it's a great letter. If there's any way to even further, I mean, it seems like our big concern is the boundary adjustments issue, to highlight that in some way, that that's really our concern, because everything else I think we responded to, but that one we're asking for them to reconsider. So any way we can highlight that in a better way would be great. Or, I don't know, make it big, huge font or something.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Ricky, thank you. That's a really good point. It's buried in the text there, isn't it, a little bit?
So, yeah,
So I
it might
can-
even just be a bolding or a putting it first or something.
I can take care of that.
All right. Motion and a second. Tracy, please.
Commissioner Weckman Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to the newly adopted agenda item 7.2, looking at adopt resolution number 2020-178, awarding the sale of general obligation law enforcement center refunding bonds, series 2020A, in the original aggregate principal amount of $14,725,000, fixing their form and specifications, directing their execution and delivery, providing for their payment, and providing for the redemption of bonds refunded thereby. Mr. Lenz, how are
Thank
you?
Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. My apologies for not getting this to you until this morning, but we are issuing refunding bonds. This is originally to replace the 2012 Law Enforcement Center bonds. Those bonds are eligible for refunding at this point, and this actually conversation started back in, I believe, March of this year, when Paul Steinman and Kathy Aho from Baker Tilly reached out to us and said that we were going to have some bonds that are eligible for refunding, or basically paying back and issuing new bonds for the remaining amount, and said that interest rates were looking favorable for good savings. We knew at the time that the pandemic was just kind of in its beginning stages and didn't know where that was going to lead us, so we've kind of watched that and stayed in touch, and it became more and more apparent that this was going to be financially beneficial to the county to pursue. And so last Monday we had our bond ratings call with S&P, and then on Wednesday received a confirmation of our AAA bond rating, and then yesterday sold the bonds. We received a true interest cost of 1.29%, which was lower than what our original estimate had been in September, which thank you, Baker Tilly, for always taking that conservative approach for our estimates. We are expecting our first savings to be realized with the 2021 budget of over $140,000. And then moving into 2022, over $237,000 in savings. The savings do adjust over the course of this bond, but that's because we moved it and adjusted it to keep it flat from one year to the next, so we had predictable debt service payments over the years. A couple of things to note. We did not extend the payments for these bonds. We actually kept it at that same time frame to keep with our plan to reduce our reliance on debt service going forward. And so this is really just a true savings that's not going to cost us any more and actually going to save us money. And already relying on it, as we've talked about in some of our budget presentations, for reducing some of our funding gap for this year and for next year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul to talk a little bit more, and Paul is our financial advisor from Baker Tilly.
Mr. Chairman, while Paul's coming, if I may offer an acceptance of Danny's apology. And Danny, anytime you want to bring a surprise on us like this, just go right ahead and do that. We'll accept your apology all the way to the bank.
Good comment.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning.
I think Mr. Lenz went over all of the details very well. Just a couple of additions here. So it was yesterday at 1 o'clock that we took bids on your offering of $16.9 million. You had 3 bidders. The best bid as bid was 1.25%. true interest cost, as Mr. Lenz has suggested. Then we take those bids post-bid and we restructure the bonds. So with that, there was a reduction in the amount that you borrowed because you received some premium. So the amount you actually borrowed, the par amount of the bonds, went to $14,725,000. And the true interest cost went to 1.29%. Your best bid was from FHN Financial Capital Markets. And that bid and the restructure resulted in total cash flow savings through 2033 of $3.9 million. And so that will be my recommendation to award to FHN Financial Markets. But prior to that, I'd like to just congratulate you again on a reaffirmation of your AAA with a stable outlook, meaning that S&P doesn't intend to do anything with your rating for at least the foreseeable 2-year period. And so congratulations to your AAA, your staff and everyone here did a fantastic job on the call. And so I just want to read from the rating report, just about 30 seconds worth, and you all and your citizens can sit back and enjoy these very complimentary comments from the S&P rating report. So as S&P views it, their rating of Scott County reflects the following: a very strong economy, very strong management with strong financial policies and practices, strong budgetary performance, very strong budgetary flexibility, very strong liquidity, adequate debt and contingent liability profile, and a strong institutional framework score. So in these times of COVID that make the rating agencies sort of nervous about what's in front of us, and we did have a fair bit of discussion about that, their thoughts are that you're well prepared to weather that storm and what might come over the next year or so. So with that, my recommendation for your resolution is to award the sale of bonds to FHN Financial Markets who bid a true interest cost of 1.25%, revised to 1.29%. And I'm happy to take questions.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, the resolution as it's written here doesn't say that specifically. Will that be okay? I'm looking to the back page here.
Right.
Could that be derived in the numbers that are listed out there?
What part are you looking at, Commissioner?
I'm looking for the FHN reference.
Yes, it's in.
What page is it on here?
It's 1.02, awarded purchaser of interest. So it's on that first page of the resolution, the second paragraph.
There it is, okay. Thank you, that answers my question, Mr. Chairman. Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to move resolution number 2020-178, awarding the sale of general obligation law enforcement center refunding bond series 2020A in the original aggregate principal amount of $14,725,000, fixing their form and specifications, excuse me, and directing their execution and delivery, providing for their payment and providing for the redemption of bonds refunded thereby.
I'll second
We
with
have
a
a
comment.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, 1.29 is awful low, but on the other hand, I don't know if that's a scary thing, because there's some people who maybe are on fixed annuities, CDs, they're not getting the 3-4% like they were hoping, and but this is a double-edged sword here, as I can see it. I mean, it's great for if you're borrowing, but boy. Anyhow, that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say thank you. I mean, we've got a little picture back on the wall there of AAA that don't call us for your car troubles, but we'd like to highlight that's a big deal, trying to keep our financial house in order. And I think we've got a long-standing staff that wants to keep that, get that and keep that. And I know we certainly do as well. So thanks, staff, for all the hard work to get and keep us there. And
Nicely done.
all right, so we've got a motion, we've got a second. Do we need to roll call this? With pleasure, right?
Commissioner Weckman Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
With pleasure, even though here comes a four-letter word again, I do hate debt, but I get its reason, especially these interest rates. So, all right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. May I just make a comment? I want
Yeah,
to thank
yeah.
Paul for guiding us through the rating process, but also want to note Steve Jones and Michael Thompson,
yeah.
who actually do all of the work to prep us for these rating calls and do an excellent job in guiding us through those as well.
Yep, nope, that's a good word. It's a big deal, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, committee reports and commissioner updates. I will start down to my right with Commissioner Weckman Brecky.
Thank you. Last board meeting was Tuesday, October 6th. We had a workshop after that board meeting on the mural for the new building and agenda management software. Not really an official county activity, but I want to, because of our pastor's comments earlier today, also on October 6th, I volunteered for Loaves and Fishes, which I do several times a year here in Shakopee, and really wanted to say that transition of that program from the old St. Mark's School to St. John's Lutheran is working out really well. St. John's Lutheran stepped up in a very, very timely basis because of having to close it down at the other place. 4 nights a week, free meal, lots of people coming by and getting their boxed meal, and a lot of people using the Shakopee Community Assistance there. So it was good to see him on there, and I appreciate how that congregation's really stepped up to host those programs.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, October 6th in the evening, attended Belle Plaine Township meeting, dealing with a lot of road issues there. They had some vandalism to their town hall a month or two back, some serious vandalism that they're trying to get all repaired before election day. So just a lot going on in a fairly small township for them to deal with. October 7th, I had the SHAC meeting. That's the State Community Health Services Advisory Committee. Most of that meeting was focused on COVID. Commissioner Malcolm was present for about half of the meeting. Counties sharing, what's going on and some real differences, whether you're in Kitson County or Ramsey County or Scott County, some real differences, but really getting information from State Department of Health and then figuring out, how our neighbors and colleagues are dealing with it. Good to get ideas and touch base. October 8th, I had a meeting with Molly Bruner on the Community Corrections strategic plan. It was a great meeting. Molly's been here just over a year now. It was good to sit down with her and learn more about her vision and goals. October 9th, had the scale meeting. On October 13th, the county administrator and I met with the mayor and city administrator of New Prague for our quarterly meeting. Great meeting, but probably our last meeting with Mayor Nikolai, because he's not running for re-election after a lot of years. So we'll have a new mayor in New Prague come January. They, of course, dealing with starting their Main Street Road project there, which will, the most of it be next year, which is a big deal for them because all those businesses are right up to the street. All the utilities underneath have to be redone, all the connections. So next year, Main Street, New Prague, going to be a big deal. Also on October 13th, had the Ask Me Labor Management meeting. Good meeting, a recognition of Colleen Herzog, who has served on that committee for, I think it was 25 years or more, and so that was her last meeting. Also on the 13th, I had my monthly meeting with Leslie, and then that evening was the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum, which I participated in. October 14th was the Scott County Historical Society board meeting. The museum has been reopened, the research library's reopened, plus they're still doing a lot online because they've had a lot of participation and more use of some of their online services, so good to get that update. October 16th was the Dakota Scott Workforce Development Board meeting, that monthly meeting. It was good, and I think Barb Dahl mentioned it this morning, that we've seen a real decrease in that unemployment rate in the last month and 6 weeks, especially in Dakota and Scott counties. Really a lot of talk about how there's a lot of employers in our two counties looking for employees and needing certain types of employees that, you know, the whole labor shortage problem we had pre-COVID still exists now with not enough people to be truck drivers, you know, landscape foremen, things like that. We do have a lot of openings and trying to help people get whatever training and licenses they need to move into some of those jobs. And another interesting or good thing, we had a representative, I'm sorry I forget her name right now, from Valley Fair join that committee, and we're always trying to get more Scott County businesses on that committee, so that was good to have that new member. October 19th, that was yesterday, Commissioner Beard and I were fortunate enough to be at the groundbreaking for the new Greystone corporate building on in the Canterbury Commons development on Eagle Creek Boulevard and Veerling Drive intersection. A little bit of snow and wind and cold impacted the groundbreaking, but exciting, good. Greystone Construction has just been such a great corporate citizen, you know, homegrown company who's providing really good, skilled jobs, providing good services. They take risks, they innovate, and they're growing here in Scott County. So really happy to be there and celebrate with them. And then this morning I had my monthly meeting with Pam Selvig, our Health and Human Services Director.
All right.
End of my report.
Thank you very
Can I just
much.
ask maybe for some, so Valley Fair, they haven't opened this whole year. Did she make any comment on
You
their
know,
future? 'Cause
right,
that's-
right. She was actually, during the meeting out in a different state at one of their sister parks. So some of their other parks have been open, of course, of their corporate entity. And those, of course, have experienced, they've been needing more help and more issues. The other thing that difficult, even as they're looking for next year, Valley Fair relies on a lot of employees from those visa programs, international students, and with all that being unknown, the housing of them. So I think they're really just looking towards next year and all the unknowns and starting those contingencies. They did have some parks open, so it's not like their whole operations were shut down. I think in some of those parks, I mean, who knows, just from a business standpoint, I don't know if they were better off not having a park open or having a park open. So I think by the end of the year, they'll know more about that. And then, of course, took just a couple calls on, you know, Commissioner Wolf's district, the helipad project, and actually a lot of calls and inquiries about voting. You know, people really interested and curious about early voting, how it works, and just getting a little bit more information. I know one of my kids voted yesterday out at Public Works, and he said it was quite busy.
Yeah, on that note, I think I'm gonna do the same thing early. I'm old school, I like to be on.
Yeah, I'm going on.
But I think, try to keep the numbers.
Yeah.
Anyway, turning down to my left, all the way down, Commissioner Beard.
Well, it's nice to be back sitting right here with
Yeah.
you, colleagues. On the 8th, and all of these meetings except for 2 were via Zoom or Skype or something like that. I was able to attend the 169 Executive Committee meeting. We talked about the Washington fly-in a bit and about our annual meeting, whether we should have the thing at the legislature again, and until the governor lifts the emergency order and allows people back into the Capitol building. I think we decided not to do that. So on the 9th, I attended the AMC board meeting, again via Zoom. On the 13th, the CAP agency board meeting, again via Zoom. On the 16th, this was a little bit of return to normal, so I'm going to celebrate it just by telling you that I had breakfast at the new Ruby's Diner, which used to be the old Perkins, which is where I had my office away from my office, you all know. I did meet a member of the Blue Ribbon Commission there for breakfast and just chatting about old times and what the heck the governor's up to with the Met Council reform, Blue Ribbon Commission, so on. Enlightening meeting, but most importantly, it was great to be back, having somebody bring me coffee and oatmeal, and more importantly, seeing the neighbors coming back, just being normal. It felt really good. On the 19th...
Let me ask you real quick if I can.
Sure.
Were the red ropes still there by the booth?
Nope.
Okay. I didn't know if they.
No, the tables in the middle were pretty sparse. Apparently they have them in storage in the back, but the booths were open and people wore their masks as they were wandering around the floor. But we could take our masks off to drink our coffee and eat our oatmeal. That was a good
And
thing.
you said oatmeal.
I did. Trying to get a little healthier here. Where was I? Oh, yes. On the 19th.
He's following the ship guidance, the oatmeal, vegetables and exercise and, you know, whatever.
More about that later. On the 19th, some staff members and Matt Massman from Micah, we had a little get-together, again via Zoom, to talk about comments that we've been asked to make next Monday to this Met Council Blue Ribbon Commission. And so we're working on some comments there. It's unfortunate, it's got to be really brief. They made a big deal about 5 minutes. I had a few equity questions about that because the the opposition to our county organization seemed to get all the time they wanted to explain why the existing status quo was a really good deal, but we get 5 minutes to tell them why we think it should change. Enough whining. On the 19th, scale service delivery meeting via Zoom. And then on the 19th, as Commissioner Weckman-Brecky mentioned, we got Stand in the Snow. Again, not a Zoom meeting. There were real people with real shovels, and it was a good time doing the groundbreaking for that new Greystone meeting and to reacquaint myself with some folks that I haven't had coffee and donuts with for a long time, and we all commented on that. So that just felt good to be there and be part of that. My report.
All right, thank you very much. How about Commissioner Ulrich?
On the 8th, I attended the 169 Executive Board meeting. One thing that we talked about there was the 169 mobility study reconvening. That study was completed some time ago, and the elected officials in the quarter are going to have changed, are changing. Certainly, Hennepin County is going to have 2 brand new county commissioners because people not running. And you might recall that probably the only way we'll get an additional lane on 169 in the future someday is through potentially a min-pass BRT lane as part of it. And so that's part of the reason to reconvene the study and refresh it and talk to the people along the corridor about it. It's not just, you know, a someday long distance kind of idea here. It's that when they have to do spot improvements along the corridor, that they will keep in mind an additional lane possibility, and so the money will be spent in increments that way. That's already been a dynamic with a project that was done in the corridor, so that's why it's important to keep this before us. On the 9th scale, met with Tim O'Neill presenting all the numbers in regard to employment issues, loss of jobs, and so forth. The 12th, S Suburban Transit Association. The 14th, MICA. The 19th, Scale Service Delivery. We talked about a lobbyist for Scale. I hope we're headed towards a very focused approach there with a specific issue lobbyist rather than the general issue. A lobbyist, I wouldn't support that as part of Scale, but I think we're headed towards a very specific lobbying effort there. Data analyst, it looks like they're going to rehire that open position. We talked more about the police request for uniform training and equipment that's needed in case of a large event that would occur. The 19th, the MBTA Management Committee met. We're very concerned about the red line being taken from MBTA, ending the contract with MBTA. That service really has become a station-to-station local service. It doesn't function at all like BRT. So we view it, MBTA, as taking part of the local service, coming into the opt-out service area and taking service. Basically, the bottom line here is with Metro Transit, they would rather lay off our drivers than lay off their drivers in the COVID situation. I think that's really the bottom line dynamic here. We're having a meeting with all the legislators that are either on transportation or part of MBTA's service meeting. We're having a meeting coming up, a Zoom meeting on Wednesday about this. That's the end of my report.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 4th, the workshop. On the 6th, Newmarket Township had their monthly meeting. On the 8th, I-35 Solutions Committee met. Charlie Zelli, the Met Council Chair, talked a little bit about what's going on in the region. That evening, Elko Newmarket City had their meeting and a workshop, and in Spring Lake Township had a meeting. A couple of building permits and things that are going to look at, and also some road improvements for next year. On the 9th scale, and Tim O'Neill had that deed and all those numbers with employment. I thought that was pretty good. On the 10th, met with the Credit River Chair, talked about a little bit about city planning and county issues. On the 12th, Troy Koopval and I went out to a residence house and looked at some water issues. And it was funny because the water issues that he came to look at weren't a problem, but as he looked the other way, he said, well, what's happening over there? Well, I'm just throwing some dirt into that wetland. So that's a problem. Anyhow, it was kind of funny that nothing that was a concern that he came for was, so anyhow. And then that evening, the planning and zoning, we had the helipad deal there, and so that went on quite late, and so hopefully you can get that hashed out all the way down there. And then, let's see, then we had the Shakopee Forum on the 13th. The MESB had their meeting, had the big little discussion on the 911 went out in some areas there about a month ago. And then we had the Cedar Lake Sewer meeting, and they got a couple issues out there with some going downhill, but they're going to do a road out there on what, I think 215, I can't remember. So they got they're going to have to move some of their stuff, and that's going to be a big cost to that sewer system. Then last night, Prior Lake City met, and they showed off some at the workshop the software that shows where all their signs are, all the roads are, the parks, you know, conditions. They have all their vehicles, everything is listed on this stuff, and they've got it down to the cost per mile to run these trucks and how much, you know, it's actually pretty nice. You know, it's another piece of software that you have to keep paying money on every year. So but it's very nice. And then, you know, as Barb said, my district, you know, the helipad, you know, for every one call you get, I probably get more than one. So, anyhow, and, but, you know, they're mostly civilized, you know, they call them, they're stating their case, and, you know, it's just, the big thing is, you know, they want that north route, and like Steve said this morning, they want the north route eliminated. Go south and bend around there is a good thing. They're talking about now that, you know, when he's warming this thing up, it takes 9 or 10 gallons of diesel fuel to whatever, and so, and that's all going to be, you know, pumped out, you know, through the exhaust and smell things up for the neighbors, and so that's a little bit of a concern too, especially on some still days, you know, where that goes. So that's my report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. On the 6th, as was mentioned, workshop. Can't wait to see that come to life. This also that day I had my monthly administrator meeting. The 8th was the monthly fish. 9th, Statman Tim O'Neill in Scale always has a great way, dynamic way of showing data, making it look appealing. So we're gonna have to get him a big S shirt or something for his next presentation. On the 14th, Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed, I was not able to meet with them, but I stay in touch with their chair, and you know they've had a long-standing history of having great managers, and that's the case as well. So things are plugging away. And also, I will chime in on the heliport conversations, and I should have mentioned it today when he was at the podium, but everyone's been very respectful, very passionate, and I get it. And as was mentioned during Interested Citizens, you know, Scott County as a whole is big on property rights, and property rights fall on both the left hand and the right hand. So trying to put a foot in each party's shoes to try to walk that out is what we are definitely trying to do for sure. Also not my district. That was also, I just wanted to carry through on that theme. Sorry about that, but you know what? We are county commissioners. We're elected in districts, but we are commissioners of the county, and so that's why we are all taking an active role in this. So I just like to use humor, otherwise I might start crying. You know, not on this, but just in general. That will conclude my report. Other than say, Deb, heal up well. Heal up well. And we'll look down to, what am I going to
Can I just say one more thing, Mr. Chair? The scene came out last week.
yeah.
We got this nice little flyer, if everybody got that in the mail, about stop illegal dumping. You know, there's tires in. Yesterday on the way home from Prior Lake, there's 2 like chairs, couches. It's like, what do they think is going to happen? Well, who's going to pay for that stuff? And you know, it says who pays for illegal dumping? Everybody does. So what if everybody? You know, I always think, what if everybody does that? What if everyone just said, "Oh, let's not have garbage. Let's throw it." Just find a place for it and put it somewhere so it's not sitting on our roads. You know, the townships. We don't have the money to keep hauling this stuff away, or the county or the city. So anyhow, find a place that wherever it goes to, and take care of it. Thank you.
And by the way, there's cheap ways to recycle tires.
Yes.
It's in our county. In our county, it's shockingly inexpensive.
And easy,
It really is. Yeah. Yep. All right, I'm gonna look into digital land and I'll look for a county administrator update. See her in there somewhere.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Couple things. Next week we have a work session on the SHIP grant now, as well as some ER policy updates. We have a recommendation on the scene moving forward into 2021 in our printed media. And then your final kind of discussion on the budget before we bring it forward here in December. So that'll be next Tuesday, the 27th. We also, the Community Health Board was supposed to meet at 9 o'clock on November 3rd. We're going to move that to 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 3rd before the TNT meeting. We have the afternoon board meeting. We will have that, and then that'll go into the TNT. And so it gets it off the election day, I think, to a more manageable day for that meeting for everybody. And then finally, just a quick update. The state did approve the bonding bill this past weekend, which was kind of a big step forward. It had been delayed from their regular session earlier this spring. But there were several projects in there that are of interest, I believe, to Scott County. A major one was $5.269 million for the Dakota and Trunk Highway 13 interchange, as we are converting that road over to help move freight and the heavy volumes of traffic that are on that road daily. And is a huge step forward in helping to meet the local costs. If you remember, there's no county road at play here. But the City of Savage's costs for the local road costs are included in there. McMahon Lake, this is one that several of you have been involved with the flooding and the high water levels at McMahon Lake that threaten some of the septic sewers and some of those local homes. Received $600,000 in flood mitigation funding. And then another one of interest for our residents, though it wasn't on the county's priority list, it was with the City of Shakopee. Is an overpass of 169 over in that Southbridge area for bicyclists and pedestrians to access the Minnesota State Trail from their community. So there were several projects that moved forward. Now we got to get that Dakota 13 project done to utilize the federal funds, that received from the TAB process. So that is the end of my report, unless there's any questions. The one other thing is I think you all received an email from Cindy earlier today also that I think you want to take a look at regarding the tax collection and the status of that. I know there were some concerns heading into October 15th, but it appears solid and good news. So
Crazy in a good way. All right, thank you very much. Looking down to my right, Mr. County Attorney.
Still no need to meet.
All right. Well, we'll take that as good news as well. So we are down to item number 11.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Otherwise, Tracy, take it away, please.
Sure. Commissioner Weckman-Brecky.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf.
Aye.
Commissioner Beard.
Aye.
Commissioner Beer.
Aye.
Commissioner Ulrich.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We are adjourned.